we've had a really very, very interesting afternoon. And in many ways, I wrote a very long script, and I was going to take you through various bits, and then I thought, well, hang on, I've heard everything here. We've talked about the Good Friday Agreement and how essential that is. We've heard about the disasters in the House of Commons and the bravery of the House of Lords. And actually the very, very smart politics played by the Irish Prime Minister. Very smart. And let me just say something about my background a little bit. You may not know this, but I'm Italian, but I was brought up in the Channel Islands, and by the way, the principle of consent was breached in the Channel Islands, my dear Lord, and nobody brought that to the attention of the government.
Feel responsible for it?
No. But it's actually quite amusing if you think about it. The United Kingdom is responsible for the foreign affairs of the islands, and there is the free movement, the common travel area, and so on. But we didn't get a vote. Gibraltar did. So we're being dragged out of our Protocol 3 arrangements. I had to get the Channel Islands in, I'm sorry, because we're an island as well, and you legitimated it for me by saying, Colin did. So my first academic job was actually in the University of Ulster during the Troubles. My mother thought I was completely mad. What was I doing going over there? That was quite an experience for me. I went from a very small island, a real island, the Channel Islands, to a slightly larger island. And my family, actually, my brothers and my uncle, are also married to Northerners and Southerners. So I guess I have some empathy and understanding, having worked there and having family there. I'll move on. We've talked about problems, and I apologise for my outburst before when I thought pessimism was more or less drowning us. I think we really need to think of how we're going to get out of this mess. And it is a mess. We have fundamentally, and I'm an engaged academic, they're not for my students, of course. We have a divided, blocked government, basically, that cannot decide. In those circumstances, I actually think the best thing is to play for time. It's a good thing they can't decide. Because if they decided, they would take the wrong decision. Because the side of the argument that everybody here supports is not the winning side. We have to accept that, right? The referendum was lost. The question, therefore, is how do you overturn the referendum legitimately? And that's, I'm relating back to my outburst earlier on, that we're a parliamentary democracy. A referendum was a mistake. People vote for all sorts of reasons. Though, of course, the referenda in Ireland to legitimate the Good Friday Agreement was the kind of referenda that I think fits in a slightly different category. So I'm not completely legitimating referenda. In this country, then, we need to overturn what happened in June 2016. How do we go about it? I think we go about it through parliamentary means. I think the only way that we can legitimately and authoritatively overturn that decision is basically through a general election. Right? And the general election, as long as the government doesn't fall before 2022, but I think they will hang together, it's in none of their interests to basically let the government fall. Whether they're on the Remain side, I'm talking about the Conservative government, Conservative supporters. It's not in their interest to fall. That's fairly predictable. We need to thank the DUP for this, by the way. This is the great paradox. The DUP will make sure that we don't take a decision, and the DUP will actually save the United Kingdom from the consequences of their own, how can I put it, irrational decision. What do we do in the meantime? About 12 months ago, when all of this started to become clear, really, that the government was blocked. We weren't going to come to a decision. If we were going to come to a decision, it was going to be the wrong decision. I and one or two others said that we thought, given that things were being played out in the way they were, that we should have actually... By the way, I need to say I think the Labour Party were wrong in supporting the Article 50 vote. They should have simply abstained rather than voted for. But anyway, we should have then started thinking about what I think one of the speakers mentioned earlier on, when they mentioned invoking Article 50, the third sentence that basically says, if the other 27 agree, we can basically stop the clock and continue negotiating and continue to have a chair at the table. I still believe, even though I'm probably completely wrong about this, I still believe that that is the only way. Oh, you mentioned it, actually, Article 50, didn't you? That's right. I still believe that that is the only way we can avoid extending the extension. How many academics have had to extend an extension for students? The government is really remarkable. That, I think, is the only way we can extend the process.
They did all go to Oxford.
Hmm?
They did all go to Oxford.
I went to Hull, the best university in the world. There was a comedian who used to joke about these things. I think that that's one way of ensuring that we play our full role in the institutions. I know it might be a long shot, but I do think that the loyal opposition should get its act together on that, because I think that there would be many Conservatives on the Remain side, or there would be enough of them, who would perhaps vote to stay in and still consider getting out. I know that sounds a little bit elongated. Otherwise, what is the result of all of this if we don't try and stop it that way? By the way, on the Irish question, just let me put it clear. You've all been diverted. A customs union saves nothing. It won't save the Good Friday Agreement. This is just a nonsense, I'm afraid to say. Right? A customs union, remember, without the internal market is basically half the pie. You will still need checks. And the government's solutions, whether it's FATMAX, a partnership, or even the Labour solution, that we will have a comprehensive customs agreement. That's why I asked the question, by the way, about full alignment to Alison before. Right? Without full alignment, in other words, the internal rules that really constitute obstacles and need checking, need verification, need enforcement. Without that, basically, the border, whether it's a flexible border, whether it's a fluid border, whether it's a mobile border, will re-emerge in people's minds, and probably physically as well. So I think people need to focus, and I have to pay credit to the Irish Prime Minister. Sorry, I'll stop in a minute. I have to pay credit to the Irish Prime Minister, and that's why I say I think he's a tactical genius. He's a very, very clever guy. He suddenly pulled out of a rabbit yesterday, publicly at least, that, yeah, customs union, fine, we welcome the British coming up with new ideas, but we also need to talk about the internal market. Now, as I say, I don't think this government, and then I will stop, I don't think this government is capable of basically resolving this problem. I hope they don't resolve it, because I think that if they do, it will result in a hard border. I think there's no doubt that the Prime Minister has fudged it, though the language she uses is the language of FATMAX. In other words, no partnership, out, our own deals, and so on. So, on that note, I don't know whether I provided you with a possible solution, but what I'm saying is an election, play for time, have an election, try and save what's savable in terms of our voice at the table until then, And then I think the election, remember, we had an election last year, and the electorate was asked for a strong and stable majority so that we could get out of Brexit. What did we get? Well, Labour didn't win, but the Tories didn't mind. They lost their majority. Thank you.